Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your Legislation and Military Policy Director, Matt Schwartzman, coming to you with an up-to-the-Minuteman legislative update that's going to be focused on the National Defense Authorization Act. I received a lot of questions over the last couple of weeks from members about where we are in the NDAA process and what are some of ROA's leading legislative priorities. And I want to just take a couple of moments to come up with this video in hopes that it'll answer any questions that you may have. For those who are unfamiliar, the National Defense Authorization Act, referred to as the NDAA, is one of the must-pass pieces of legislation that Congress deals with each and every year. For over 60 years, Congress has come to the table and has successfully passed this legislation in a bipartisan manner. Even though we deal with congressional resistance to funding the government on time and the ongoing continuing resolution, we are fighting to ensure that Congress comes together in a bipartisan way to pass the NDAA. We've seen both the House and the Senate pass their respective versions of the NDAA, which do have some differences that need to be reconciled. Both the House and the Senate have named their conferees that will come together to reconcile those differences and come up with one version of the legislation to present to the President for his signature or veto. So right now, with both versions passed, let me give you ROA's top 10 priorities for the fiscal year 2024 NDAA. First, we want to provide cost-free dental care through the TRICARE dental program for all members of the selected reserve. This is an extension of ROA's leading legislative priority for the 118th Congress to provide sustained medical readiness for the total force. There was a provision that would provide for cost-free dental care through the TRICARE dental program that was included in the House's version of the fiscal year 24 NDAA, but not in the Senate's. ROA is fighting to ensure that that provision is included in the final version of the NDAA. We're fighting to increase the accession bonus for qualifying nurses from $20,000 to $40,000. If you had an opportunity to watch the video that was put forward with ROA's 2023 resolutions booklet, you'll likely have heard me talk about the importance of improving the recruitment and reenlistment bonus structure of the selected reserve. We had a resolution that was passed just this year in Baton Rouge that reflects that, and we're already taking action here at National to accomplish the desired end state of improving the recruitment and reenlistment bonus structure. This provision, which is included in the House's NDAA, but not in the Senate's, again, would improve the nursing officer accession bonus from $20,000 to $40,000 to improve the recruitment of nurses in our military's medical corps. Again, in the House, not in the Senate, we're fighting to see it in the final version. We're looking to improve health care benefits for survivors of the Reserve and National Guard. You may have heard about ROA's efforts on spearheading the introduction and passage of the Sergeant First Class Michael Clark TRICARE Reserve Parity Act. This legislation was introduced in both the House and the Senate in this Congress and was included in both the House and the Senate's respective versions of the NDAA. There are minor technical adjustments that we're looking to see through, but other than that, given that this legislation was included in both the House and the Senate NDAA, its percentage for passage is close to 100%. And so we're really happy to see that provision included in both the House and the Senate NDAA. We're looking to increase the funding that's provided to the Tri-Service Nursing Research Program, also referred to as TSNRP. Currently in the House's version, there's a provision that would fund this program at $7 million for fiscal year 2024. ROA is fighting to see that increase from $7 million to $12 million. We would also like to see the establishment of a budgetary line item solely dedicated to the TSNRP. Unfortunately, the program is not funded in that way, which means that funding for the program is not always guaranteed and it's not always predictable. ROA has been a staunch advocate for this program, and we're looking to see again an increase from 7 to 12 million, and then also the establishment of its own budgetary line item. We're looking to fully fund the National Guard and Reserve Equipment account, which was referred to as Nria. Nria is not guaranteed funding, which means that the Reserve and National Guard may go through a fiscal year without having any funding required to procure or modernize its equipment. This proves especially problematic when considering that the Reserve and National Guard is not always funded and equipped at the levels that it needs to provide for interoperability with the active component and permeability with our allies and partners. There is funding that is provided for Nria in the House's version. That funding is very similar to what we saw at previous fiscal year levels from last year. And so ROA is fighting to ensure that Nria is fully funded in accordance with what we see in the House's level right now. We're fighting for Congress to endorse our draft Replenishing the Ranks Act, which would add to the protections that exist in the House's NDAA currently by providing for 100% back pay to all reinstated active and reserve service members who are discharged solely for not being able to comply with the Secretary of Defense's COVID-19 vaccination order, which, as you may recall, was rescinded in last year's NDAA. So we're looking for endorsement of ROA's draft Replenishing the Ranks Act. As you may know, ROA has long opposed the retirement of the A-10 and the Air Force's Close Air Support Mission. There's a provision in both NDAAs that would reduce the total inventory that the Air Force needs to maintain for the A-10. ROA is calling on Congress to oppose that provision and to continue funding the A-10 and the Close Air Support Mission. There is not currently a suitable replacement for the combat credible capability that the A-10 provides, especially when it comes to executing the Close Air Support Mission. And so ROA is going to continue to fight for that, and we're fighting for that in this year's NDAA. We're also trying to encourage Congress to enable the Air National Guard to purchase 2 additional F-15 Eagle EX-2 aircraft. This is the more modern version of the F-15, which is now outdated and needs to be replaced. ROA is fighting for an amendment that was included in the House's but not in the Senate's version of the NDAA that would require the Air National Guard to purchase 2 additional F-15EX Eagle II aircraft in 2025. Now, the interesting thing about this provision is that it's limited to those aircraft, those A-10 aircraft that are retired against ROA's opposition, but do not have a replacement. And so looking to offset the combat credible capability there and ensure that the Air National Guard maintains adequate programs of record and strategic installations across the nation. We're looking to ensure parental leave parity between components. We saw great momentum of this in last year's NDAA and with the implementation memorandum that was issued by DoD in 2022. But unfortunately, there is still some more work to do in that front. And so ROA is looking to spearhead parental leave parity between components. This was included in the House's version of the NDAA and not in the Senate's, and so we're looking to include that in the final version. And last but not least, guys, and I appreciate you guys staying tuned for this video, we're looking to ensure the provision of incentive pay parity between components, specifically for hazardous duty incentive pay and aviation incentive pay. Both HDIP and AVIP were a pivotal part of ROA's advocacy campaign for the fiscal year 2022 National Defense Authorization Act. Unfortunately, despite ROA's best advocacy efforts, the Secretary of Defense has yet to sign a certificate that would provide for HDIP and AVIP parity, despite being a requirement in the fiscal year 22 NDAA. And so ROA is looking to get a legislative fix to this issue and finish the job on that front. And so guys, that is ROA's top 10 for the fiscal year 2024 NDAA. On our website, in the call to action sub-tab, you will find a call to action that is encouraging you, the dedicated members of ROA's Minuteman movement, to persuade Congress to support ROA's top 10. And if they have any questions, or if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me at mschwartzman@roa.org. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in to this Up to the Minuteman update, where we've spotlighted ROA's top 10 priorities for the fiscal year 24 NDAA. And I'm looking forward to coming to you again with another Up to the Minuteman update soon.